The Babysitter Who Disappeared Without a Trace. Real crime story. The neighbors said they heard a scream around 9:47 p.m. It came from the second floor of the Thompson house, a sharp, terrified cry that cut through the quiet suburban night. By the time the police arrived, the door was still locked from the inside, the TV was still on, and the baby upstairs was sound asleep. But the babysitter, 17-year-old Megan Riley, was gone. Her phone was on the couch, her jacket was hanging by the door, and one of her shoes lay in the hallway. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken windows, and no footprints outside in the wet grass. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. Officer Daniels stood frozen in the living room, looking around the perfect, untouched house. He whispered to his partner, "How does someone disappear from a locked home?" His partner didn't answer. Upstairs, a baby's soft cry echoed through the hallway, breaking the eerie silence. And then, just as Officer Daniels bent to pick up Megan's phone, it lit up suddenly. A text message appeared on the screen. It read, "Don't look for me." The story began 2 days earlier. Megan Riley was a cheerful high school senior from Cedarville, Ohio. She had just started babysitting for the Thompsons, a kind couple with a 7-month-old baby named Oliver. Megan was saving money for college, and she'd always loved children. The Thompsons trusted her instantly. She was responsible, polite, and always on time. That Friday night seemed ordinary. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson had a dinner event across town and asked Megan to come by at 6 p.m. Megan arrived a few minutes early, wearing her gray hoodie and jeans, her hair tied back. Mrs. Thompson gave her the usual instructions: feed the baby at 7, put him to sleep by 8, and help yourself to anything in the fridge. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Around 7:30 MEMS, Egan texted her best friend Katie saying, "This baby is so cute. He just giggled for 5 minutes straight." Katie replied with a laughing emoji. Megan sent one more text a few minutes later. "But I keep hearing weird sounds downstairs. Probably the house settling, LOL." That was the last message Katie ever got from her. By 9 p.m., the Thompsons were still at their event, unaware of anything unusual. At 9:15, the neighbor, Mrs. Collins, noticed that the living room lights flickered on and off a few times. She didn't think much of it. Old houses sometimes did that. But at 9:47, she heard the scream, sharp, short, and full of panic. She immediately called 911. When the police arrived 10 minutes later, they found the front door locked and had to break in. The house looked untouched. No signs of forced entry, no blood, no chaos. The baby was asleep in his crib, unharmed. The kitchen light was on, and on the counter sat a half-eaten sandwich and a glass of milk. Megan's phone was on the couch, displaying a half-typed text message that said, "Someone's in the hum." The message ended there. Detectives searched the entire house, attic, basement, garage, even under the porch. Nothing. No fingerprints other than the family's and Megan's. They brought in K9 units, but the dogs lost the scent right at the front door. It was like she'd disappeared into the air itself. The next morning, when police checked the security footage from the street cameras, something strange appeared. At 9:46 p.m., just 1 minute before the scream, a tall figure in dark clothing walked toward the Thompson house. The person stopped at the gate, looked up at the windows, then turned toward the camera. And that's when every feed glitched. The screen froze for 5 seconds and came back, but the figure was gone. Detective Brooks stared at the footage, frowning. It's like someone didn't want us to see what happened. And then 2 days later, Megan's phone, which had been in police evidence, buzzed again. A new message appeared on the locked screen. It read, "You shouldn't have come upstairs." Everyone in the room froze. The phone wasn't connected to Wi-Fi, and the SIM card had already been removed. Detective Brooks looked at the others and whispered, "Someone out there has her phone number and knows what she saw." The room went completely silent as the phone buzzed once more, this time with a picture. It was a photo of the Thompsons' living room, taken just 5 minutes ago. And the police officers were standing in that very same room. The room went cold. The photo on Megan's phone showed the exact living room they were standing in. Same furniture, same lighting, even the same police tape still hanging by the stairs. But one detail froze everyone's blood. In the far corner of the picture behind the couch was the faint outline of a person. The figure was wearing dark clothes and standing perfectly still, almost blending with the shadows. Detective Brooks immediately barked orders. "Everyone, move! Sweep the house again!" Officers rushed to every room, checking the closets, basement, and attic. But once again, nothing. No footprints, no open windows, no unlocked doors. Whoever had taken that photo wasn't there anymore. Or worse, they were never there at all. The photo was sent to the tech lab, but even after several hours, the experts couldn't explain how it was sent. The phone had no active SIM card, no Wi-Fi, and no recent app activity. The message just appeared, time-stamped 5 minutes before the police saw it. That night, Detective Brooks sat in his car outside the Thompson home, staring at the dark windows. He couldn't shake the feeling that Megan's disappearance wasn't random. He opened her file again. Photos of her smiling with her friends, her school ID, the report from the last babysitting night. Everything looked so normal. Until he noticed something strange. In one of the photos Mrs. Thompson had sent, taken weeks earlier, Megan was holding baby Oliver near the living room window. Behind her reflection in the glass was what looked like a faint human outline, almost the same shape as the figure from the footage. At first, Brooks thought it was a trick of the light, but now he wasn't so sure. Meanwhile, word of Megan's disappearance spread across Cedarville. Flyers covered every telephone pole. News crews showed up at the Thompson house. Her parents appeared on local TV, begging anyone with information to come forward. On Monday morning, a man walked into the police station. His name was Eli Turner, a cable technician who lived 3 streets away from the Thompsons. He looked nervous, clutching his cap in his hands. "I think I saw her," he said. He explained that on the night Megan disappeared, around 9:40 p.m., he was driving home from work when he saw a girl running barefoot down Maple Avenue, the same street the Thompsons lived on. "She looked scared," Eli said, kept looking over her shoulder like someone was chasing her. Detective Brooks leaned forward. "Did you see where she went?" Eli nodded slowly. "Yeah. She turned onto Pine Road, right where that old rental house is. You know, the one that's been empty for years." The detective felt a chill. That house had been abandoned since 2016 after a fire in one of the rooms. It was boarded up, but teenagers sometimes snuck in. Brooks immediately sent 2 officers to check it out. When they arrived, the house was silent. Overgrown weeds covered the porch, and a "for sale" sign leaned sideways in the dirt. Inside, the air smelled of dust and mold. Everything was dark, except for one thing. In the middle of the living room floor, lying in a pile of soot, was a small silver bracelet. The name Megan was engraved on it. Detective Brooks's heart dropped when he got the call. He rushed to the scene, holding the bracelet in his gloved hand. There was no doubt. It belonged to Megan Riley. Her mother had confirmed it the night before. As he stood in that cold, empty house, something creaked above him, a faint sound, like footsteps on old wooden boards. He froze. The other officers looked up too. "Is someone upstairs?" Brooks whispered. One officer nodded, flashlight trembling slightly. Sounded like it. Slowly, they climbed the steps, the boards groaning under their feet. The second floor was dark and smelled of smoke. Then, on the far end of the hallway, they saw a door, half open, faint light spilling through the crack. Brooks motioned for the others to stay behind. He pushed the door open. Inside was a small bedroom with peeling wallpaper and broken glass on the floor. On the wall, someone had written a message in black marker. She shouldn't have answered the phone. Right then, a loud crash came from downstairs, the front door slamming shut on its own. The officers ran back down, guns drawn, but the house was empty again. No one outside. No footprints in the dirt. Only one thing had changed. The bracelet Brooks had placed on the table was gone. Detective Brooks stood frozen in the middle of the abandoned house, staring at the empty table. The bracelet, Megan's bracelet, was gone. Just seconds ago it had been there, lying in the middle of the dust. Now, there was nothing but a clean circle where it once rested, like someone had lifted it gently. One of the officers whispered, "Sir, the door's locked again, from the inside." Brooks turned slowly toward the front of the house. The heavy wooden door stood shut, deadbolt twisted. None of the officers had touched it. The silence was so thick you could almost hear everyone's heartbeat. And then, from upstairs, a baby's soft cry echoed through the air. The men froze. It wasn't possible. No one had brought baby Oliver here. The sound was faint, but unmistakable, like it was coming from the room with the writing on the wall. Brooks motioned for everyone to stay quiet and moved toward the stairs. Each step creaked like it was about to break. As he reached the top, the crying stopped suddenly. He pushed open the bedroom door again. Empty. The writing on the wall was still there, but this time, something new had been added beneath it. Fresh black ink spelled out, "I told you not to look." Brooks stepped back, his flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. The air felt colder, heavier. One of the officers called out from the living room, "Detective, you need to see this." When Brooks ran downstairs, he found a small folded piece of paper lying where the bracelet used to be. He picked it up carefully. Inside, in neat handwriting, was a message. "You're getting close." No fingerprints, no footprints, just that message, and a faint scent of Megan's perfume lingering in the air. That night, Brooks didn't go home. He stayed in his office, staring at the clues laid out on the board. Megan's photos, the phone messages, the bracelet, and now the note. He kept replaying the neighbor's 911 call, the scream at 9:47, the flickering lights, the silence after. Something didn't add up. He went back through every piece of evidence. That's when he noticed something strange on the security camera footage from the Thompsons' living room, a reflection. When the lights flickered, there was a brief moment where a man's face appeared in the window. The reflection lasted less than a second, but it was clear enough. Brooks ran it through the facial recognition database. The computer processed for almost a full minute before stopping on a match. The name appeared on the screen, Jacob Miles. Brooks frowned. The name sounded familiar. He scrolled through the file. Jacob Miles had been arrested 6 years earlier for stalking a teenage girl, Megan's older sister, Emily Riley. Emily had moved out of town years ago after the incident. Jacob had served 2 years and disappeared after his release. Brooks' stomach tightened. He picked up the phone and called Megan's parents immediately. Mrs. Riley answered, her voice weak and shaky. "Mrs. Riley, do you know someone named Jacob Miles?" There was silence on the other end, then a soft gasp. "Oh God," she whispered. "He used to follow Emily home after school, but he said he'd moved away. Why? What happened?" Brooks didn't answer. His mind was racing. If Jacob had returned, and if Megan looked anything like her sister, it might explain everything. The next morning, Brooks got a call from the tech team. "Detective, we tracked where that message came from. The one that said, 'Don't look for me.' It wasn't sent from Megan's phone. It was sent to her phone from another device." Brooks asked, "From where?" The tech officer hesitated. "From a prepaid cell tower near the old rental house." Brooks and his team drove there immediately. The area was quiet, surrounded by trees and old houses. Behind the burned rental home was a narrow path that led into the woods. As they followed it, they came across a small wooden cabin, old, half-collapsed, but recently disturbed. Inside, the air smelled like damp earth and smoke. Dust floated in the sunlight streaming through the cracks. On a small table in the corner sat a cracked phone, a cup of cold coffee, and a stack of photos. Brooks picked them up carefully. Every photo showed Megan, taken from a distance, walking home from school, entering the Thompsons' house, even one of her inside the living room, holding baby Oliver. Then he noticed the last photo in the pile. It was taken last night. Megan, sitting in that same cabin, her hands tied, eyes wide open, staring directly at the camera. The timestamp read 3:17 a.m., less than 6 hours ago. Brooks' heart raced as he looked around the small cabin. There was no one there, but a faint dragging sound came from behind the house. He signaled his officers to move quietly. They stepped outside into the tall grass. And there, half hidden behind the cabin, was a locked wooden door built into the ground. It looked like an old storm cellar. Brooks knelt, pressing his ear to the door. He could hear something, a faint, shaky sound, a voice, a girl's voice. "Megan?" he whispered. The voice on the other side whispered back, hoarse and weak. "Help me." Brooks shouted for the crowbar. The officers pried the door open with all their strength. The hinges groaned, and as the door lifted, a rush of cold air escaped. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness below, landing on a small figure sitting in the corner, her wrists bound, but her eyes wide and alive. It was Megan Riley. And then, just as they were about to climb down, a gun cocked behind them. A deep voice said, "You shouldn't have found her." Detective Brooks froze, his heart pounding. The voice came from behind the trees, low, steady, and close. Slowly he turned his head. A tall man in a black jacket stood in the shadows, holding a gun pointed straight at him. His eyes were cold, almost empty. "Jacob Miles," Brooks said quietly. Jacob smirked. "She looks just like her sister," he whispered. Before he could pull the trigger, one of the officers tackled him from the side. The gun fired, echoing through the woods, but missed. Within seconds, Jacob was pinned to the ground, shouting, "You'll never know the truth!" Brooks rushed down into the cellar, cutting Megan's ropes. She was trembling but alive. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "He said he was watching me for weeks." As they led her out into the daylight, Brooks looked back at the old cabin and noticed a small camera light still blinking inside. Someone else had been watching them too. Was Jacob really working alone? The truth might still be out there. Follow for more chilling American mysterious crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe, and comment if you want more chapters in Real Crime Mysteries.